ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. If you're watching on Twitch, apparently I'm green again. So there will be some figuring that out later in the show. But
it's the Incredible Hulk edition. He's really mad.
It's really crazy. I was wondering if you were saying my autofocus was causing some problems, maybe. So if I go to Logitech Capture, can I stop the autofocus?
The only thing that's weird to me is that in your Zoom window, we must look normal colorings. And that's what's throwing me, because it's just in your Zoom window. It's not in before it even gets to streaming or before anything else happens. It's just sitting in the Zoom window. It's green. So weird.
Yeah, that's also weird, because I think...
But they don't have to see Jordan to hear all of his lovely wisdom, right? Actually, most of the charm of Jordan is being able to watch him, really. So,
yeah. I mean, Mom always said I had a great face for radio. So,
right.
All right.
We'll figure it out.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We are it's a Zoom bug, is what the YouTube is saying. It's been happening all week.
It's a Christmas edition.
It's a Christmas edition Zoom, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Nathan, for the information on that.
I've been dying trying to figure it out for the last 10 minutes.
It's bothering Lucian a whole bunch. Yeah, well, welcome everybody. We are a Dungeons & Dragons talk show talking about RPGs and all the fun things that we do throughout the week, news and what have you. It is right at the end of 2021. Christmas is just over the corner, and yeah, so there's not a lot of news, but we have some things that we could talk about here and there. It's all in Lucian's mind because he didn't want to write any notes today, so it's going to be a good show.
It's going to be great.
First of all, we're big fans of Matt Colville. I caught his live stream and also his new video, in which he was saying it's okay to say no to a player. Did you watch this?
I did. It was really good because it was actually relevant, because also over the week, we had a fan kind of come in, or somebody that watches the show. I don't know if everybody's a fan, but they came in and they commented and they mentioned about having trouble getting in campaigns, and there was a good discussion going on about players and GMs and stuff. And then that video kind of dropped, and I went and watched it. And I thought, oh, this is pretty relevant to the conversation we were just having. And it was interesting because, you nod your head, you agree. I was right there with them. And yet, if you took a step back, and he was right what he said at the very beginning, where he says, we're always taught as newer dungeon masters, or if you watch any advice video, it's always about just say yes. And,
yes and or no but kind of a thing.
Yeah. And it was interesting to see that he had a different take on it. And it was a take that I think I'm more aligned with. I don't know if I'm exactly, I think I tweak it a tiny bit, but I'm more Matt Colville style than not, for sure. How about you?
I think it's important because, I'm building this Endigar game, and we're having really good discussions in the... Sorry, Endigar is a 5th edition, or just a tabletop RPG campaign world that I want to create. Because I've never created a campaign world. I've always played in adapted Forgotten Realms, or I ran a Hot Springs Island game. And that was also its own kind of world, and it had its own rules and things like that. So I have made my own stories, but I've always used other people's worlds. So I thought it'd be fun to create something from the ground up. And we were talking in the comments about tieflings are not... tieflings in Forgotten Realms have an ancient heritage where maybe their great-great-grandfather made a pact with the devil, and that's why they look like this or something. But in my Endigar world, tieflings are the product of, you're a human that made a bargain, and then over the years you've been slowly changing into this creature, and so now you are considered a tiefling because of the connection you made earlier in your life. So you started human, or you started as an elf or something like that. And so we got on the topic of well, if that was what happened, could you have a tiefling cleric? And I was like, no, I don't think so. Because if you openly made a pact with something else, a god is going to reject you because of that pact that you made with evil or with something. You're not, you know, whatever. And so then we got into this huge discussion of like, well, you're limiting your players, and is that not fun, and all this other stuff. And I was like, listen, there's a compromise here. Like, I always feel like there is a compromise.
Yeah.
Like, what if you wanted, you know, I started as a tiefling and then I rejected all of that, but I still have the physicality of it, you know, stuff like that. So
color back.
Oh, the color's back, ladies and gentlemen. We're happy.
Your blue t-shirt is so good.
So, and I was like, no, I think if that was the case, I would be okay with it. But you have to, like, your players need to meet you halfway, you know? And I don't know, have you ever seen the movie The Gamers? It came out really, such a good movie.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, in that movie, and it's a joke, they're just making fun of D&D, and you should all go watch it. I think it's free on YouTube because they're a Creative Commons movie company in Seattle. They make all this stuff. The Hand of Fate or something like that. Really, Dead Gentleman Productions, that's what it is. Anyway, The Gamers, go check it out. But in that movie, the guy's like, well, I want to play a monk. I want to play an elf monk. And he's like, well, there's no elves and there's no monks in my world. And he's just like, but it's in the rules book. I should be able to play this, right? And he's like, well, no, but it's my world. And they get in a big fight about it. And then the big scene is they play their characters. So the character comes up and he's got big elf ears. And the compromise was, I'll let you play a monk, but you can't be an elf. And then you see the NPC reach over and rip his ears off because he's like, who's not an elf? And it's a joke. So that was a good video just on a topic that we don't talk about, like you were saying, is saying no, but you don't. I always follow the Will Wheaton's law. You don't have to be a dick about it. But, you know.
That's the key too. Yeah. There's a double thing happening there, I think, and that's the big one. Is that how you say no is probably just as important as if or when you decide no is okay, right? And same with yes. When you're saying yes is okay, the way you're saying it or presenting it, also, I think has to be done a certain way so that it's an encouraging thing all throughout the whole thing. I mean, players are going to come up with crazy ideas. And just like he was talking about, his player wanted to do something based on gaining a game advantage first, based on a in lore, in character idea that he was having that was going to fit in this cool world he just learned about, he was going to play in, and then he had this concept that was like, this is going to be so good. And I think when you're looking at both of those, that also helps you make your decision of where your line might sit on that. But like your campaign is the perfect example for this, because you actually have decided to go through and say some things are here, but some things are not. Because if I add everything, then it's Forgotten Realms.
In a way, yeah. I mean, if you're like, right. And we've got desert worlds, and we've got this, and we've got this, and you start adding all of these different things, and you're right. You have the Forgotten Realms. You have,
and I think there's a lot of power that people forget in being denied something. The idea to say there is no magic in this world when we start this campaign. You can look at that as, I don't know, we're playing D&D. This kind of sucks. Why do I want to play with this guy? Or you can embrace being denied something and see where it goes and see what kind of new story you get out of that, because all your other stories have always had the magic in it, right? Or just some other crazy thing that we're not having this thing in it. This thing that's a trope. This thing, goblins are the good guys in this world. Yeah. Changes everything when you buy into it and you say, okay, let's see where that kind of leads. What kind of new stories do we get when you don't just have, you know, little bad guys that are easy to beat up on and everything's evil. So it's easy to know what evil is and it's easy to make decisions because you can just go do those things without any consequences. But what happens when you do have consequences? What happens when your world is missing this? Or what happens when, you know, this? So I think if people embrace those kinds of things, that's kind of like a Dark Sun kind of thing too. Like, you're in a world where there's hardly any water. You're in a world where things are really messed up. And if you don't embrace Dark Sun as a campaign world, you want to play a, you know, Forgotten Realms, halfling, whatever, an Eberron, you know, giant tank man, and that doesn't fit inside, you know, the Mad Max theme of Dark Sun, you're kind of missing the whole point of the game. You have to give the dungeon master something. That's the thing they get out of being a player in the game. We're all players. There's not just two different groups doing a thing. Yeah. We're all players. And my playing part is getting to devise a themed world that you get to go and play in and wreck and do all kinds of cool stuff with. But I'm assuming you're going to play along with me. I'm assuming you're going to, like you said, meet me halfway in this theme world. So here's my theme. Here's this thing that's cool for me to make and spend hours on doing and stuff. Meet me, and now we're going to play a game inside that. We're in Jurassic Park. We're in, you guys were riding a roller coaster and you went through a portal.
What's happening?
Now you have a bow and you have a sword and
Yeah, no, I was earlier this year, or maybe it was last year, but my friend, he might be watching, AJ was running a D&D game, and it was his first time being a dungeon master, and he really wanted to run this third-party supplement called the Weird and Wild, or Wild and Weird, and it's like a horror survival supplement for RPGs. And he straight up said, like, I don't want there to be a lot of magic, because the more magic there is, the less... I mean, if you can just conjure food and water, if you can Liamon's tiny hut, that takes away all the other urgency that I want you guys to have in this game of, like, oh, crap, like, I don't have a lot of hit points. And there were other ways to heal and things like that. I will say, when we played that game, I was like, I like magic, so I was kind of like, oh, well, okay, I guess I'll try this. And so I played a fighter, and then I think when I got to level 4 or 5, we unlocked some dark magic. So then it was like, okay, well, now if you want to, you can multi-class into a mage one. So I multi-classed into Warlock, and so I had Eldritch Blast and stuff, and it was fun. But that was interesting because from, I don't know, D&D is not balanced, I think, to have everybody be a melee character, So we had a Blood Hunter, which was Matt... the other Matt, anyway, Matt Mercer, I think that's his character thing that he created for D&D.
Which is still a little bit of magic.
So we had a Blood Hunter, I was a fighter, we had a Barbarian, and I think that was it, just the three of us. And so it was just like, when things had high AC, there was no other alternative. Like, nobody had a spell that attacked their wisdom or did things like that. So in that instance, I think we learned that maybe D&D 5e isn't the best for that. But that world, like, you would never want to play an artificer. Like, you'd never, there was just a lot of things where you're like, it just doesn't make sense. But yeah. And I don't know where I was going with that, other than I played a restrictive game, and then it was
in Revenor. I'll give you another one. In Revenor, I wanted there to be some survival aspects to how we traveled from grid to grid. So we were doing a hex-based game, and I wanted the characters to make a forage roll, not actually play it out and RP it all out, but we were going to make up a chart, and we're going to have them roll. And if they had a good roll, then it gave them a bonus for the rest of the adventure, and if they had a bad roll, it gave them a minus to deal with for the rest of the adventure. They didn't get enough food, they didn't find enough fresh water or whatever. So in my head, I realized I want to do this survival mechanic that adds a little bit of difference to the different hexes that I'm doing. And the first thing my players were talking about in chat when I said, hey, we're going to play kind of a survival game, there's going to be some survival aspects to it, they were like, okay, so the druid's like, okay, well, I'm gonna get Goodberry, so we've got our food taken care of, and the cleric's like, well, yeah, I'm gonna get Create Water, and we're gonna get, and I'm like, whoa. So I had to take Goodberry out of the game, basically, and I was like, you can't just create these things, because the whole point of it was to do this survival aspect of the game, to add these pluses and minuses to what was going on. The way I explained it in my game is that they've traveled to a whole nother continent, so the spell components they needed wouldn't work here, because the way they've learned to do Goodberry or those other things, they didn't exist here. There were different plants, different trees, different bushes, different whatever. So it was going to take them a while, because if we were going to get rid of the survival mechanic later on, like early on, and I wanted to be a thing, and then it could kind of fade away after the first couple of levels, they've gotten pretty powerful. Now we don't really need to worry so much about that. But I wanted those first few levels to feel very like a survival game. So I tried to do that. And they all kind of bought in. They all, I think, worked with me, whether, nobody grumbled or anything. But I mean, I think they were just like, okay, well, we'll see how these mechanics work. And sometimes it was great, because sometimes they got a bonus. And what it was is, not only were they able to forage for enough food for the group, if they rolled high enough, they got enough stuff to bring back to the encampment that they were adventuring out of, so they could sell it and make a couple of gold for bringing back extra stuff to where they're located at. And if it was bad enough, then they might get just a minus on one of their saving throws. They might get a minus number on like a Constitution saving throw or something. And it may never even came up in the adventure. Nothing might have ever even caused them to do a Constitution. Right. But they knew something had happened. Like they just hadn't found enough food, or the food they ate was bad, or they picked something that they weren't supposed to pick, and they're slowly learning this new land. So I think it's okay to limit a little bit. I think it's okay. It's always, I think it's no, but it's how you say no, like you said. And I know I saw one of the Death Angel Shadow here in chat was saying it's hard for me to say no to my players. And I get that too, because some of the players I've played with, they come to you with some really good ideas. And then if it's a good idea, I can't say no. Like they're like, no, listen, it's kobolds inside a contraption that looks vaguely like a dragon, but it's not. But there's an illusionist that adds the final piece to it that makes it look like a red dragon.
Yeah. Be sure when you come up with those ideas, be sure to copyright them before Kobold Press takes them. So.
Exactly. Those are great ideas. Those are, I can't not have that. How can I not have that?
I guess my final thought is like, sometimes when you're presented a blank canvas, you're like, I don't know what to paint. Like, this is just, when you have every option, it's like, I don't know what to do. But when you, and I think inadvertently, you know, a dungeon master will say, like, we're going to start in this city. So then you're thinking, like, okay, I'm probably not going to be like a drow from the Underdark who's evil that worships Lolth or something. Like, how do I fit into this city? So already that restriction has got you thinking creatively. And so I would encourage, if you are a DM and somebody's, you know, butting heads with you, just encourage them, like, how can you creatively solve the problem that I have given you? Like, how are you going to play?
And what player do you know only has one character concept?
Yeah, that's true.
So if just one of yours is, if they give you a no on one of them.
Actually, I do know that player.
Sure you
it's
have
my
a
wife,
handful.
and she only plays vampires. So.
Oh wow. Again, when she said vampire, she had me at vampire, whether my world had it or not. I'm like, yep, it's in. We're good.
So yeah, and then moving on, I wanted to talk about, I feel like we drop Kickstarters every once in a while, and we talk about things like that, but like,
ones we're interested
in. You know,
in,
5e's been out for a while, and there's a lot of third-party supplements that have come out for it. And just like off the top of your head, like, are there some third-party supplements that you, I mean, Strongholds and Followers is an obvious choice, but like, what are things that you actively use in your game? Like, what
Stronghold and Followers.
Okay, yeah, that
has been definitely in my game. It's been used. We built the Paladin has been able to build the fort.
Okay.
They the dwarf was able to get a roll on one of the companion things and got something really cool off of that. So we've been using those. I love those. It does swing the power of the game, so you just got to be ready for that.
Yeah.
Most third party. The other one I use a ton is Gods and Goddesses from Jetpack 7.
Okay.
Love their artwork, and they added some more deities, because when I went to Revenor, I wanted a different deity set, or at least some different deities, not just Forgotten Realm deities. So I wanted to mix some other ones in. So I used that one to bring in a couple of different deities. And what's cool about that is it not only tells you how the clerics are a little bit different, but it tells you how the paladins are different. And they have different abilities and things that they can do too. So that's kind of fun to bring in my game.
That is cool. Boy, Jetpack 7, they've been making some really good stuff. And I bought their Legendary Dragons book recently. And it just, if you like dragons, it has like a bunch of unique dragons that have a really cool set of lore that you can put into your stories. So
those are the ones. Now I backed some other campaigns. So I backed that 20. We were just talking about 2160 Carbon Cyberpunk game is a 5e game, but in my game, those are the two I can think of. What about your game? What supplements have you used?
Yeah, I was thinking that I haven't actually used that many, and like for the amount that I buy, I definitely want to use more of the supplements that I have bought, because there's a lot of supplements that I bought that I'm like, this is amazing, it's really well done, but it doesn't necessarily fit into the campaign I'm running at the time.
That's this one.
Yeah, what is that?
This is the Cairo Halls of Adventure, Adventure's Guide to Yao Xing, and it's a version of D&D 5e that's done in Korean.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you were talking about that.
And the guy put a lot of work into it, and he built some classes, and he built a lot of history and culture that you could use and throw in here, and how some things are different. I really liked it, but it doesn't fit in my campaign yet.
Yeah.
I might want to run one at some point, but yeah, it doesn't fit there yet. Yeah.
Yeah, no, somebody, in chat, RPG DMCA brought up Arcana of the Ancients, and that's another one. So that's Numenera in 5e. And
monster books.
And monster books. But specifically that, if you wanted to run a regular fantasy game where they run into a spaceship and you want to introduce these weird, in Numenera they're called ciphers, but introduce these weird kind of disposable battery charged things, Arcana of the Ancients is really good. And then I specifically there's a great supplement called Magical Industrial Revolution, which is this idea that you're using magic, but somebody is using it in a mathematical way. So it's like, well, I need to have a constant supply of electricity, and so you hire a wizard to open a portal to the plane of water, which creates a waterfall that spins your wheel to create all of the electricity you need, or something like that.
Very cool.
One that I want to use really, really bad is Faiths of the Forgotten Realms, which is the system from what was that system? It was Theros, I think. Yeah, no, can't remember. But it's the idea that I could follow a particular god and get benefits from that god without being a cleric. So I like the idea of I could, that was Theros, I think. So I could be a paladin of, I'm getting them confused. Those were two different supplements. Faiths of the Forgotten Realms is here's a subclass for a specific god in the Forgotten Realms. So if I wanted to, be a cleric or a paladin of Mask, I could. Or if I wanted to be, here are the benefits of this particular god. And I really like that idea of playing a very specific one. And then he made a supplement called Faiths of the Forgotten Realms 2 that actually took it and said, you could follow these gods, but you don't necessarily have to be a paladin or a cleric. So it's like, if you want to follow, if you want to follow the dark god of the Drow, the Gonador, the god of slimes and oozes, here's a sorcerer subclass that you could play. And so I like that. And I'm not sure how balanced they are because I've never ran them, but I like the idea of let's do a very, everybody's got a faith kind of campaign and a very God-centric campaign. And why would you guys work together? Especially if you don't follow the same god. And I thought that could be a lot of fun. Or if you have a player that's I really just want to be devoted to Loviatar. She's the coolest ever. And I want to be a Goliath. And you're okay, I'm on it, Jordan.
Yeah.
Boom.
Everything I have seen as an add-on thus far has been slightly overpowered from what gets released by Wizards of the Coast. So even me and you've used Cold Bolt Press's Beasts and Bestiaries.
Yeah, Tome of Beasts is
huge
great.
mega book. All of those beasts are tougher. They do, they just a better set of things they can do. Usually their hit points are a little bit higher. They're just a little bit tougher creature if you add in. So when you're looking at their CR, I think their CR is more real. When it says CR 4, your group, your 4 guys of, 4th level characters are going to have some tough times. They fight that one. In the monster manual, maybe not so much. A couple of 4.
Yeah, I dropped a couple, and some of those are brutal. I just in Rod of 7 Parts right before we finished the game, I used a Tome of Beast monster that I like called the, it's a treasure golem, and it's just a big waving swirl of stuff. But if it hits an attack on you, it steals a magical item. Yeah. And so that was really crazy because I was like, no, you lost this. And I was going to take away Ted's lightsaber, but he made his save, so he was fine. But it was one of those things where I was like, no, that was a real possibility because what are you going to do now that you don't have your lightsaber? That's an interesting development in the story kind of a thing. So
Yeah.
But yeah, Cold
So I
and
like
Press,
them.
I use Tome of Beasts a lot, and I haven't used Tome of Beasts 2 that much because, well, it's just come out.
I'm
and
still getting through Tome of Beasts 1.
Yeah, and there's so many monsters, but they did a great job on that one. But I like Tome of Beasts and Creature Codex. I've used those a lot in the past. Another one that I really want to use and enjoy, I want to do a crafting-centric game, if that makes sense. Like, I like the idea of adventurers going, like having a city and adventurers going out and getting monster parts and then coming back with their funds to craft some kind of magical item. And Witch Plus Craft is got a really cool crafting system, and I really like that. So
I was waiting for you to say that one because you talked about it a lot in a lot of our different shows, and I was waiting to see when you were going to add that to one of the campaigns you were running. Or
So I don't know. It's funny. There's so many really good supplements, but I don't think I would want to run a campaign that has all of them at the same time. You know,
Yeah,
but
and
I
just
like
picking and choosing.
I really like that crafting system, and I wanted to be able to do things like that. It's based on D6s, but it's fun, and like you kind of add D6s as you are better at crafting, and so you up your chance of your percentage roll of like successfully doing it. But there's also the questing aspect of like, okay, I need to go get a tooth from a Hydra. So you have to go and convince all your party members to kill this Hydra so that you can then come back and make a dagger out of its tooth. And that's magical and spits venom or something. And kind of fun. So.
Oh, it's so funny you're saying that. Remember what you're saying because it's going to come back in the show.
Okay. But yeah, so, and I've used Strongholds and Followers. We played in a game that did that, but like, yeah, I don't know. There was just lots of really, really cool stuff. I'm looking at all my like third-party stuff, and I've got Jetpack 7 and Frog God Games, and
there's a lot of good stuff out there, and I'm glad there is. I'm glad there's a lot of people making supplements that you can add to your game. Things that, I mean, because we all have creativity, we add stuff to our games, but it's cool to see what some other people have come up with, or to help drive your inspiration, or I just like, I lean on that, creature book a lot, because there's a pretty good monster manual set of books out for Wizards of the Coast right now.
There's a lot.
2 years ago, it felt a little lean.
Yeah.
Right now, it feels pretty good.
Like, I could just use published Wizards of the Coast if I wanted to. And in fact, I did for Rod of Seven Hearts. So
I could use another couple of monster books for sure. Just to keep my players on their toes, like, because they love it when they meet something they've never seen.
Yeah,
because they're old D&D, players from way back, and so throw something weird at them like that treasure golem would just they'd be talking about it for weeks. Because
my favorite is we fought an oozasis, which is an ooze that hides as an oasis. And so they went and they're like, oh, water, finally. And then the whole thing rose up and attacked them. And that was fun. And that's something that we still talk about with me and my friends. Like, oh, yeah, that Oozasis was so cool. The final one I want to bring up, and this isn't a 5e supplement per se, but there are lots of third-party, well, shouldn't say third-party. There are a lot of system-neutral things, like Hot Springs Island and things like that. But one that I bought that I've used a little bit, but if you're interested, it's called the Nameless Grimoire, and it is got 666 spells.
Nice.
And they're all kind of, they're just D&D-esque, so you can kind of make them work for 5e really easily. But when you have the player that has all of the spells memorized, and they're playing a wizard, and you want to drop something kind of odd, it's like, you find this book and it's in a language you don't realize. And so it's like, oh, I cast, detect language. You now know the spell apathy. And you're like, what? Like, what is that? And so, I don't know, there's a lot of really fun control fungi. Like, this has just some weird, and then there's fireball and things like that in this book. But lots of interesting little ones that do cool stuff. So I like it. Glowing objects. I'm just looking at some of them. Insanity is
I would love another couple of third-party books that gave us big groupings of spells. Like, here's 50 new spells, or here's, in the form, in the theme of, what Wizards of the Coast is doing, but here's these other spells. That'd be fun, because and to me, the thing that lacks a little bit in 5th edition, it feels like all the stuff we have has come from the previous editions, and we haven't got a lot of new magic spells for 5th edition. We've got all the other ones that have come from all the other editions.
Yeah.
And just recently, with the newest books, Tasha's, that we got a couple of new spells that maybe we've never had before.
Right.
But for the most part, you could probably count them on both hands, spells that weren't in any other version. So they haven't really added a lot of new spells in 5th edition. They just brought everything back. But same with magic items. All of the magic items that I've seen in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and that's really the only place, with a few sprinkled here and there throughout some of the other books, are a lot of stuff that came from other editions or came from other adventures, and then they brought it into 5e, but not seeing a lot of new things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 5e is just not the magic item game these days. It's not like everybody's running around with 5 or 6 or 7 different magic items on them. They've got a couple, and that typically is your campaign before it falls apart. So I don't know. That's the one thing I think that lacks for 5e for me, is that I almost want a version of Dungeons and Dragons that's more heavy focused on magic items and magic spells, and less focused on the abilities you get each level.
Yeah,
because you don't really need those things.
You should check out Questing Beast, Ben Milton.
Ben.
He made a game called Knave, where there is no class, but it's based off of what weapons you find in equipment. Mm-hmm. So like when you hold the scepter, you are a cleric, and when you hold the wizard rod, you're a wizard, and when you have the sword, you're a fighter. And so you can change on the fly too, so it's kind of fun. Like, oh, give me that staff, I want to try this out for this round, and then you like swap it back and forth. And it's a cool idea where the magic items are what empower you, rather than just like you having a class.
And Matt kind of mentioned that in his video, this idea of I want their powers to come from the magic item and be unique, and that's how they gain their powers. That's how they get these cool things. That's what lets you do Misty Step. That's what lets you do cast a silence bubble or something. It's coming from these items that you're using, versus we just all have access to these huge spell lists or this ability list that we get because of our subclasses.
Yeah. There was a spell, I was just looking at our 666 spells in this nameless grimoire, and one that caught my eye was called Live Fast, Die Young. And so it's a 3rd level spell, and when you cast this spell, you can sacrifice points from your health to increase your die rolls. So as you lose health, you can, on the next die roll, apply that before or after the roll. But during this spell, you can't be healed. You can't gain any kind of benefits from healing. So it is like I'm going to cast this, and we're going to go, like, my spells will land, but every time I do that, I'm just hurting myself. And it's a really good idea to just kind of, I don't know. Some of these are probably overpowered.
No, I love it because of the mage. I'm like, I'm going down to 1 hit point.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Too funny.
I love the idea that life force is tied to your power. It's cool.
Oh yeah, and Skull Dixon, thank you for sharing that. He made a game system called Here Be Monsters, or not a game system, but like extra monsters and stuff. And Skull's a big fan of the channel. It's been around for a while, so thank you for sharing. Those are. I just think if you really like D&D, you probably already go out and search a lot of the third-party products and maybe the DMsGuild and things like that. But there's a lot of really awesome stuff out there. So that is all I really wanted to talk about. Is just if you can use D&D 5e to make a lot of cool stories with various third-party supplements to find the way you play. So
thank God.
Yeah. Moving on to everybody's favorite part of the show, Bardic Inspiration.
I'm not going to play mine because your screen hasn't been green for a while, and I don't want to touch anything. Like, okay, I'm not touching nothing.
Don't mess with it. I don't want to mess with it either. But this is the favorite part of the show because I have no idea what Lucian's going to talk about. But we're going to start with Lucian. Lucian, what is your Bardic Inspiration?
Well, I've been reading a book, and usually a lot of mine have been coming from books lately because I've been reading a lot. And I read a lot of game RPG literature right now, so a lot of stuff on novels that are based on people playing video games or being stuck in the video game or being thrust into the video game virtual world or whatever. And the one I'm reading right now, which is really fun, I think you would like, is it revolves around a new player in a city, a medievalish, probably high magic city. Think of like a Waterdeep would be a good probably equivalent. And the premise that the author took on it is, what does Waterdeep do with all the waste that's happening? And they've created this district called the Pits. And what happens is they create these pits and each pit has a monster at the bottom of it, some type of creature that likes to eat certain things.
Yeah.
So if you want to get rid of wood and stuff, there's this pit for the wood. If you want to get rid of refuse, there's a pit for that refuse. If you want to get rid of undead stuff, there's one that likes to eat that kind of stuff. So they create this whole economy around the pits. Well, the player joins onto a pit restoration team while he's low level and learning how to live in this world, and he's going to help restore pits that have gone out of control or have been old and are run down and need to be rebuilt and reset. So they go in, they clear all the monsters out, and so the pit restorer says, I'll do this job. He gets paid for it, but he gets anything that's in the pit. So they get to clean it out and whatever's in there. So the first one they're cleaning out was an old trash pit, but in the story, somebody had thrown a noble's body in there to get rid of it, so nobody would find out. So a mystery happens because they find the noble's signet ring, they find his coin purse, they find a sword that was on his hip, they find some other stuff at the bottom after they're done cleaning out, and they can sell those things to help. It's like their bonus money for cleaning out and restoring the pit. And then it kind of goes off because the player starts to figure out, well, what am I going to do with the signet ring? And he starts to realize who's trying to kill who, and then he gets wrapped up into this whole thing that's going on. And so it was a really cool thing. So the second part of that economy that I think was fun for a campaign, if you tried to run this, was that the pit monster parts are very valuable. So like having the liver or the spleen of the plated worm can be used for lots of things. So when they have to go in and clean these things out, not only do they do that, but they dissect everything. They take all the valuable parts and they go down to a different part of town where they sell all those valuable parts. So that kind of fits right into your witchcraft kind of thing too, where you're grabbing these monster things. So the whole idea, and then it's kind of very Act Inc. because you could sign on to a pit restoration company. You would get a pit and they would say, okay, we want this restored in the next month. You've got a month to restore it. Here's the keys. There's walls around it that lock the creature in through pretty high level magic. But other than that, you have to figure out how you're going to clean them out, what's in there, what do you do with all the stuff. You have to clean all the muck out, get it all done, and then it turns back into this nice restored thing. You hand the keys back over, and then that person brings in the next pit monster, and then they start this whole business about what's going to be thrown in the pit. And the whole thing revolves around how the city gets rid of waste and all the stuff that's going on. So I thought it was an interesting, you could have a pretty fun campaign, Act Inc. styled. You have a company. Maybe
I like that you're basically like the sewage team, or like you're the garbage collectors of a fantasy world, and that's
perfect
something we don't
level one character.
Yeah, we don't think about that, but like that, we got to figure out what to do. We're not Harry Potter and just magic away our poop. So.
Yeah, because and what they've done too is they talk about it in the book a little bit. They said, well, we could have just put a gelatinous cube down there, and everything would have been dissolved, but we don't make money that way. What we want to do is get a creature that eats the stuff, but then excretes something that's valuable that we could use, or having those things breed while they're down there, and then we're culling them for the parts that we need is the money-making scheme that's going on. So it's not just about getting rid of the trash. It's about getting rid of the trash in such a way I make money on it.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really cool, interesting idea to throw your players at. And if they're first-level players in a new world, and you're like, well, you could be a pit restoration is up on the TAC board. They need a couple people for that. You could join the city guard, I guess, if you want. There seems to be something going on. There's missing children in the town, and then they could just pick something and just kind of go their own way. I thought it'd be a very interesting, fun campaign. The book's been a fantastic read so far.
What's the book called again?
Good. And I knew you were just going to say that as I was going to open it up. The book is called, I'm on the second one, Second Story Man. The first one was called Scouts and Scoundrels, I want to say.
It reminds me of, you mentioned gelatinous cubes, but yeah, I read
Scamps and Scoundrels.
Okay. I read a game that was like a wizard. Well, it was a dungeon, but it was a wizard's tower to explore, and one of the rooms was a throne that had a hole in the seat. And long story short, you come to find out that this was actually a toilet. Like, it's the wizard's grand toilet. But when you look down into the throne, because there's a hole, it goes to a gelatinous cube. And then the idea of it just like, oh, that's disgusting. But he trapped a gelatinous cube in there to just like get rid of his waste, because it would just dissolve it and whatever. Because gelatinous cubes are weird like that. They just they don't grow. They just they just consume, so it's weird. But
I put it in chat. So it was Scamps and Scoundrels by Eric Ugland. He does a lot of lit RPG stuff. Been a really fun read so far about a character who gets transported into this game world, and he starts out as a thief, but he's looking for a job in the very beginning.
Oh, cool. Game Lit. A lit
Game
RPG.
Lit. I'm into it. It's all the stuff I've been reading. I don't if anybody in chat is liking that stuff too. I'm just like a huge fan all of a sudden.
Very cool. That's
genre.
awesome.
So that was my thing. I thought you would like it. I knew it would be a campaign you would dive into.
Oh, yeah. I don't usually dive into poop, but no, I would play that.
Yeah.
That would be fun. I would run that.
Yeah.
So, oh, yeah.
But what about Jordan's bardic inspiration? He had something written down. I saw the notes before I turned them off.
Yeah. I was so I got a little like retro device that plays ROMs and stuff, and I've been playing the Pokemon Emerald. I've been playing the old Pokemon games, and I was thinking about super effective, and we kind of have that, like, if you've never played Pokemon, which I'm sure everybody has, but like, if I do a fire attack against a leaf or a plant monster, it's super effective and does double damage. And we have that in D&D. We have resistances and vulnerabilities. So if this creature is resistant to that, you do half damage to it. But we don't really have like a wheel, if that makes sense. Like in the world, well, I guess like Generation 1 Pokemon, it really felt like it was this wheel of like, fire hurts plant, but plant hurts water, and water hurts fire, and it was this wheel.
Yeah, like the rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking of like, well, just what if we took the 4 elements, like air, earth, fire, and water, that just makes the most sense, and make a wheel. And this kind of stemmed from, I've been working on a hack of an open source game called OpenD6, where it's like it's a bunch of D6s, and I was trying to take that system and like, how could I make it my own and make like a fun combat oriented RPG using D6s. So the idea of
Naruto.
Yeah. The idea of that game is I would have a set base of items that you could take, and then I would build a character, and Lucian, you would build a character, and then we would, on a grid, fight, and who wins, kind of a thing. And I like this idea of, like, I don't want to make it where you have to fight monsters. You could still fight monsters, but I like the idea of, like, if we actually wanted to just, like, duke it out, wouldn't that be fun? And
spell sling, like spell sling, or full on.
Who's better, the wizard or the fighter? Let's figure it out, and like things like that. And I don't know. So I've been playing around with that, and I like the idea of the wheel of that Pokemon super effective kind of thing. So if I am casting an air spell against an earth-based creature, I want it to do extra damage. But if I'm casting a air spell against water, it's going to do less damage, because it's like, well, what does that even do? So that's kind of my bardic inspiration, as I've been playing around with that idea. And I don't know, I just like that you could, if I have knowledge about my enemy, I can do more damage. And that's been a fun aspect of D&D that we don't usually get to lean into, because a lot of times it's like, oh, you're a troll, but I don't know that trolls are vulnerable to fire, so I probably shouldn't do that. But what if we allowed the player to have player knowledge and encouraged that? It's like, okay, how do I need to figure out what element this guy is. I'm gonna cast a fire and just see, oh, it does extra damage, and play around with that idea. So
right. Yeah, I like that. I like the idea too. I've always thought of that in a way. I've had a similar idea where I wanted to play Magic the Gathering, but I wanted to play it on a grid with things that were moving around versus it being in the card game mode. I wanted to turn the card game into a tactical battle game, right? So it was kind of the same idea of, you could have these buying different magics, and you'd have things moving on a board, and there would be, like you said, D6 system to figure out how all things are going on, but it's still based in that 5-color magic or something. So there's a lot of push and pull on those. And I like the idea of, rock, paper, scissors, of trying to figure out what you're weak against, what you need to switch to be more powerful against. Oh, they're using an earth shield, so I should use a fire-based attack, or, whatever it might be. That's probably the opposite. But like, here comes that fireball, so an earth shield would probably work better than, say, a fire shield or a water shield. It'd just blow right through that or something. So you have these things that are constantly.
Yeah, and that also goes back to just counter spells. Like you know, it's no secret that I don't enjoy counterspell, but I would love a counterspell if it's like I cast a fireball at you and you summon the idea of your counter spell is to summon a water shield, and then that counters the fireball. Like, I think that's cool. Like, I would love to play something like that. So, yeah.
And there should be a variable in there, not a yes or no answer for counterspell. It should be, okay, here comes the fireball. You've said you're going to use your shield that's water-based, so you do your water shield.
Yeah.
Now let's roll to see who was more effective on their spell, or who was quicker, or who was, did a little bit get through? Did you stop the whole thing? Let's put some randomicity in there so we can see how that magic is swirling around with each other. I think that'd be really fun, too, if there was mechanics for that. Instead of just, I counterspell on my reaction, I counterspell your reaction with my reaction, and then I can. Then we go into Lucian's rant about counterspell in D&D 5e, which he hates.
Indoor in chat was reminding us that there was a HeroScape version of Magic the Gathering that is kind of what you want. And it's called Arena of the Planeswalkers, and it's really fun. Like, I bought it because it was on sale and it looked like a cheap way to get minis, because at the time I'm like, I need to find some minis for my game. But then we ended up playing it a couple nights, and I don't know anything about Magic the Gathering, but I like HeroScape, and it was fun to like sit down on the table and it was a birthday one night. We all got together and played it. So.
I will look into that.
Yeah, it's fun. Cool. I will share a link with you, sir.
That's so cool. Great. And still, we were talking last week, and I've been thinking about it all week. We're still a tiny bit in Bardic Inspiration, but Magicka. Yeah. The idea or creating a campaign or creating a way that your players can cross the streams, right? And then something spectacular happens. I think we need more of that. Like you're throwing your lightning, and I'm like, okay, I see his lightning going, and I'm going to shoot the water water spell that I've got, and they both combine, and then this happens, and it's just like, I want more of that stuff in a game. That sounds just super cool too.
Or be unable to cast lightning spells when it's raining, because then you just shock yourself. Like, I always thought that was really fun. That is just a great silly game. So
you do it where there is water, and then it's an area of effect spell. It's no longer you
utilizing the environment. Yeah, it'd be really cool. Sounds like we want a different game entirely from D&D, but we want it to feel like D&D in some way. And who knows, maybe my D6 system will be that when I figure it out. But I'll need playtesters at some point. So I'll outsource, or I'll use the Saturday morning D&D show folks as a testing ground that we can all play. Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. That'd
be super cool. It needs to be fun and fast. I think that's the key. Something fun, something fast, something interesting.
So, Lucian, I hear you play games as well, rather than just talk about them.
Every now and then.
What's going on in the video game world, and by video game, the dungeon world of
Dungeon of the Mad Mage? Video game wise, what have I been doing? Video game wise, I played The Crew a bunch. I wanted to race all week, so I've been racing all week.
Oh, really?
For some reason,
no more Diablo 3
to drive. No, I got my characters as high as they could go, and
I see you play a lot of Diablo 3, so
yeah, bounced off that a little bit. But Dungeon of the Mad Mage, it's been super good. We are attempting to kick down the door of Xanathar's lair. We just went through a mass ton, like a Star Wars movie full of stormtroopers load of henchmen at this point. And we are just wrecking through, and we have now found Xanathar. And this is going to be interesting because I don't know, are there stats for Xanathar? Have you seen stats for him anywhere?
I'm
thinking Waterdeep? My DMs made him up.
I'm not sure. I don't know, actually.
Yeah. I think my DM's making him up. And I'm thinking it's got to be tougher than a regular Beholder, right? Based off the Beholder, but tougher. So I think we're in for a crazy, crazy fight. And this could be one of those ones where we see a TPK, which we have not had with our digital Down Under Dungeon Master from Australia yet, but I'm sure it could happen. So it's interesting to fight these really big things, but we're walking through these hallways like we're superheroes right now, and that's definitely going to get us in trouble, because you know how you get overconfident when you just blow through 20 or 30 bad guys, and it's not too tough. And you're just like, well, that means the dungeon master, as a dungeon master, if you blow through 30 of my minions, I've got to throw something tougher at you because that's just how the game works. So I know something tougher is coming down the pipe. So we didn't go down to the 4th level yet. So because we're still, for whatever reason, our wizard decided he wanted to take Xanathar down. I don't know where that thought came from. I don't know why he decided, but he's just like, no, we're going to his hideout, we're kicking the door in, and we're ending Xanathar. And I'm thinking, dude, he has a book to himself. It's called Xanathar's Guide to Everything. I don't know if we're getting rid of this guy, but we're going to see if it works out. So it's been pretty fun. Those are on Tuesday nights on Danimal DM's Twitch channel. He's been streaming those. Super fun to watch us play. I think there's a lot of humor in the game. It's a lot of fun. High magic. We've gotten a lot of magic item backup too, because we've been using the downtime rules. And if you use downtime rules, which allow you to possibly acquire magic items, you can actually get them instead of just waiting for your adventure to hand them to you. So we've got some pretty cool loadouts. We got some really good characters that have been playing. And it's been really fun. We're going to play this week, even though Christmas is coming up. Everybody said they wanted to play, so that was good. I think it's the one good thing about, well, I don't even want to say that, but the one thing we've been able to take advantage of, everybody not being able to go anywhere, and people not planning to go and hang out with family as much, people not leaving their homes as much, and we all know why. It has led to more consistent game playing and everybody being available every single Tuesday night. That's and not cool. Having stuff come up. So we're getting a lot of gaming in, which is really cool if you're a gamer. So that's kind of a nice side benefit to, everything else that's going on, is that, hey, there's a lot of time to game if you just want to stay home and stay safe. So, but what about Jordan's? Now your big campaign wrapped up. All your campaigns have wrapped up, right?
Yeah.
But you're in the big throes of 30 days, 30 videos.
Yeah.
You've thrown yourself, you've dropped the gauntlet. So that has to be some of the stuff that's going on. What else is happening?
I haven't been playing, which has been sad. And I've been running games, but it's been kind of nice to have a break too. And I think the Rod of Seven Parts group, which they want to call themselves the Banana Bunch. And I just am like, okay, but... So the Banana Bunch, they want to get back together maybe like February. We're just kind of taking some time off. There's been talk of doing maybe a holiday special where we just kind of use those characters, but like before, after the events, who knows? And so I don't know. And then Indoor and I actually have been talking about running. I bought a DCC. Go ahead and take a drink, Animal. I bought a DCC holiday game, the 2020 holiday module. And I forget the name of it, but I read it and it's really fun. And so we did last year I did a DCC holiday game on Indoor's channel. That was a lot of fun. And so this year I was like, oh, maybe we should do that again. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, he runs a game every year, I think, right on the holidays. So he just runs on his channel. Games. Yeah, so there's like, but he runs them, or other DMs come in and run them for him too. So he's done a lot of cool stuff. Or he does this 24-hour stream, which is probably coming up at some point. He's done before too. So.
Where they all
is he in chat? He's probably talking in chat and telling us what.
Yeah, he's in the YouTube chat. Yeah, so
yeah.
He does say Waterdeep has the stats for Xanathar, so I wonder if it's not a custom one. So
maybe it's in there. Maybe he's using those.
But yeah, no, I haven't been playing games. Kind of sad. But it is what it is. So I might do some online games. But no, the world building has been a lot, and I've been going through that, and it's been good. A lot of people in the comment section of those videos, creating my world of Endegar, they ask really good questions. And one guy specifically kind of summed up my entire gaming career, I feel, where he's like, you get really excited about little things and you kind of want to put all of them into your world. And maybe you need to have like a more overarching direction or something. And so I was like, boy, that's everything. Because I'll be like, man, I want a desert adventure. And I just like whisk my players away to the desert because that's what I want to do. And I'm like, I want to do this now. And I want an orrery and I want that. And I do. Like whenever I think is cool, I usually just throw it into my game because I like it. So it was interesting to have somebody point that out and be like, that might work for just like a fun game, but like for a directed kind of world, maybe you don't do that. Like think about it like, what is the point of having this here other than you think it's cool? And I was like, yeah, there's no point. I just think it's cool.
It's cool.
But in the end of the day, if it's your world and it's your game, kind of do whatever you want. But I thought that was fun to kind of think about. So, but I'm having a lot of fun with that. And then when I'm not working on that and thinking about other stuff, I've been working on this modular D6 game that I've kind of been putting together and just trying to make the math work. It's weird because I don't want to just straight up use that system because I don't actually enjoy it that much. The numbers just get so high because you have to do in Open D6, you have to do a attack roll and then they have to do a defense roll. And then you add up all of these D6 and see whose number's higher. And so, let's say I roll a 15 and you roll a 13. Well, I do 2 damage to you. And that's fine when it's, 13 and 15. But when you start getting, all right, I rolled a 65 because of how many D6s you're adding. I was like, oh, this is a lot. So I'm doing some math and I'm trying to figure it out. But that's been fun. Like to just like, how would you create a game like that? So, then with the idea that I want it to be like PvP focused in a way, so.
Back to your campaign world.
Yeah.
The most important question, where did the word Indigar, or how did you name this campaign world? Where did that come from? Is that in one of the videos?
It is. It's in the first couple videos. And I'm going to disappoint you. It was a random name generator.
Oh!
So there are various parts of the world that are very intentional and coincide with an overarching theme. But boy, I am not good when it comes to names. So a lot of my villains and stuff are named after Latin versions of words that I liked. Like the main villain is Domitica, which is domination. It's kind of a Latin root of that. So there's that. But Endigar, I found a couple of words that I was like, okay, I like how these sound, and I combined them together, and then I removed some letters in between, and I came up with this word called Endigar. And it just sounded cool, and it felt right, and so that's what, so it's not special.
Awesome.
Sorry.
Well, we were both commenting on a video we both saw that had a whole bunch of views. It was like the worst video for being a dungeon master. The guy does a really good job.
Oh yeah, Joe Cat.
And there was one slide in there that he did that nailed me. It said, shows a slide and it has 2 halves to it. And on the one half is a dungeon master who's diligently writing notes. And he's like, are you the dungeon master that spends 2 to 3, maybe even 5 hours planning out your campaign and getting ready for the session? Or are you this dungeon master that spends 30 minutes before the session prepping and you did everything through the name generator? And it pops up the fantasy name generator website. And I would go, oh my God, he nailed me. I only spend about 30 minutes before the session. I go to that website to get everything. And then I just go from there.
Because I'm like tavern. I don't know. That's why I bought that book, Archaic Names. And then when I took that entire book, which is a random name generator, but it's in a PDF. And then I took everything about that book and I put it into a Google Sheet that would then pull the names randomly to give me a full name and title. And that's been a lifesaver because I'll be like, oh yeah, well, let's open that up. Jacob of Bartholus, and I have like a name, but before that, boy, I was real bad. Yes, Jancy, Hero Quest, the pooch. So they're making fun of me because in Rod of 7 Parts I was notoriously bad at making NPC names, and I'd look around and I'm like, I don't know, you run into Router and he's hanging out and they're like, what? And so the
Mr. Lamp,
the 4 dogs that were named there, I was looking around and I'm like, I don't know. And that became a joke, but I named the dogs Router, Hero Quest, Morpheus, and I think Cup or something. And so they had just like the stupidest names, but it was a fun joke and that was fun for the stream. So, sometimes it just has to be fun, but fantastic. Well, everybody, that is our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and all that jazz. This is the last show before Christmas. So I hope you guys have a happy Christmas if you do celebrate.
I thought you were almost going to say it's the last show of the year. I was
like, that is the next show. But we will be back on the 26th. Lucian and I talked about it. I think we're both free and good, so we're gonna play on the 26th. or play. We're gonna do this. Follow us on the Twitters and join the Discord for announcements and information. Follow Lucian on Twitch to see whenever he goes live. I am now on a Christmas break, so I'm thinking I'm going to try and get these Endigar videos done in the afternoons, and then in the evenings I might stream a little. I've got a lot of minis to open, and that was a fun stream we did a couple of weeks ago where we just opened minis and talked about how cool minis were. So
yeah, those are fun.
So I might do that again. But yeah, so follow us on all of the things, and stay safe, have fun, be merry, and we will see you next week with the last episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show 2020.
2020.
And then I have to create a new template for our 2021 shows. So anyway.
There you go.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye.